Good morning, Stoney fam. Happy Friday. It's been quite a bit since I've talked and seshed on here with you guys, but I've really just decided that this is something that I want to do when I feel like doing it, and I was trying to stick to a schedule, but then kind of some other things happened, and now I have a lot of other stuff that I have to keep my focus on, especially, like, I have a job, like, I have to keep focus on that, and then whatever free time I do have, I can put into other things that I'm interested in, like this, but, I've had so much going on in my life and in my personal life especially, so I just really didn't have the motivation or the time to really pull out a phone and make any episodes for anyone. I just couldn't do it. And some exciting news to share with you guys. I'm finally going on a trip in a few days. I haven't gone anywhere really in quite a bit, so I'm very excited to go off and head out to the city. And I haven't been there in many, many years specifically, so I can finally get to experience it as an adult now, and that's going to be super exciting. And I also get to meet some really fun and cool people that I've been really hoping to meet throughout the community. And we're all going to get together and meet up. So that's going to be really fun, as well as nerve-wracking because I have severe anxiety, especially social anxiety. But I kind of already know some of them a little bit already, and others that I don't. You know, it'll be fun to meet new people. And that is life. You got to try new things and new experiences. And that's just a part of life. I can't hide and hibernate forever, you know. And I love meeting new people, even though it does scare me too. And since it's coming up very soon, we have our wonderful holiday, 420, which is also a special, like, kind of also an anniversary for me, because that is when I first, like, started and, like, was hired into the cannabis industry. I was officially, like, hired on 420, which was, like, the date that I got my card and stuff, my license. And when we were hired to work at my first dispensary I'd worked at, it was, like, we hadn't opened yet. So we were all meeting each other for the first time, and we were all going to be working together, and all of us had just started there. So it wasn't like some of us had already been there, and then some were new. Like, we were all new. And it was a different experience. I've not had, after this was the only time I've ever experienced something like this, and it was like a few months of preparation before we actually started to work, and the store was even open. As some of you and many of you may know, I've stepped back and taken a break from being in the industry, working myself, until as a whole, the bullying and discrimination and just toxicity within the work environments, they need to stop. Once that completely stops, or I feel like there's a change coming, I will put myself back into that, but until then, I'm very focused on what I'm doing right now, and I already have a job that I very much love doing, so I really don't see that as something that I'm going to pick up and do anytime soon, but I do very much appreciate all the experience and knowledge that I gained from working at all these different places and being a part of the industry for as long as I was. 3 years is kind of a long time. And even outside of all that, when I wasn't working in the industry, I was still always researching different strains, making different sheets to pull up on Excel. Oh, sorry, hold on a second. I had a tickle in my throat. But and throughout a lot of my experiences in the industry, I have seen some crazy shit as well. And I think a lot of people that have worked in the industry can tell you, like, they've seen some stuff that's like, ooh, that's weird. Or like, what the hell? I remember, like, my first instance where something kind of crazy happened while I was at work. I was bud tending that day, and we would kind of be familiar with the security guards. Like, we would see them, they'd come inside, they'd buy stuff, you know. We knew who worked there. It was a very small company. Like, we all kind of knew each other, and like I said, we all started with each other too when first opening. So besides, I will say, I didn't mention, like, everybody in the grow op and stuff, they were not a part of this. It was just the retail side. So everybody in the grow was already set up and doing their thing. They had to have already been ready for us to prepare too. We couldn't all start at the same time. That would make no sense. But I just wanted to clarify that. But I had known the security guard, and he was one of the nicest guys that worked there. You know, really easygoing. He was a big dude, like, very intimidating, but like the cuddly teddy bear, you know. Like, we knew that he was super kind and he wasn't a mean person. But like, it took a bit to push his buttons. And this guy in particular that came in one day, he was just an ass. And this was during COVID, and he was refusing to pull his masks down to show what his face looked like. which we had to verify with your ID to make sure that it's actually you and not somebody just coming in pretending to be you. And during COVID, you could easily probably have gotten away with stuff like that, just putting a mask on and pretend you look like someone. And he didn't need to be close at all. He could be standing far away. We just needed to see that that was his face. He refused. But he wanted to come inside and needed to come inside and refused to take no for an answer when we wouldn't let him inside. So he decided to, just punch the security guard in the face. And what was really weird about it is, right after he did that, a customer or two were coming up. I forget how many. They were coming up to the door because they get buzzed in. And, they stopped fighting so that the security dude could open the door for them. And then just, went back to, whatever was happening. It was just a very weird, okay, we'll pause for a second because these people are coming by, but then I'm going to fight with you again. And then the guy took off as if he didn't think that this was on camera or something. And he did get in trouble legally. So, yeah, don't throw hands with people at dispensaries. That's probably the worst place to do it. There's cameras everywhere. Literally everywhere at a dispensary. The only place that there might not be is literally in the bathroom. There's one everywhere. Throughout the whole back, throughout, everywhere. So, I just don't see why they thought that they were gonna get away with doing that. But, to each their own. I understand we have our own views, but don't punch people. You can't do that. And if that wasn't, as bad as that was to explain and to go through, I'm sure. There was another instance where a different bartender that I worked with, she had sold the strain to a different customer. And this customer did not like it at all. He came right back in shortly after and was heavily complaining about it. He wanted his money back. And we tried to explain, we can't refund this. We can't. We apologize. We tried to offer whatever we could do, but he was not getting his money back for that. He was pissed and he took the jar and threw it at the bartender, which is so disrespectful and dangerous because it's a glass jar. And not it is a glass jar, but it was in a paper packaging surrounding it. Still, that's dangerous. That could have hurt someone. And so there were so many different instances where I felt very unprotected while I was working there. Customers would act crazy and we were just kind of oh, they're right. They're always right. And there are some instances where no, you guys, customers are not always right. And we have to really implement that you can't treat people like that just because you deserve a service or you think that you deserve something because you're paying money for this. You can't treat us like crap. We are human beings. We're not robots. And on the flip side of that, there were so many really awesome people that really appreciated our help, my help, especially too. There were several people that I was close with that I had first met them as patients or customers and then ended up actually having a friendship with. Two of which I was really close with and ended up hanging out outside of work and had their phone numbers. They were really good people. And you don't really realize how much you're helping somebody until they kind of explain it and show you hey, this really helped me today. And that was my biggest passion of being in the industry. I loved helping people. But it was really getting hard when at different places that I worked at, they were not aligned with that. And there was another place that I had worked at after I had worked at the first dispensary I'd worked for. There was one time that I had helped this patient. She was very anxious. She was a very, very anxious person. And I struggle with that myself all the time. I totally understand what that's like to have severe anxiety and not know what to get to. When you're going into a dispensary and you're well, what should I get to help with this? I don't want to make it worse. I don't also know how to ask these people. I'm very anxious. And I sat and I helped with this woman for an hour. I guess it was too long. One of my coworkers and manager was next time you can't really be helping them that long. And I was what do you mean? Did you want me to tell her to go away? I didn't quite understand. And they said it without saying it. As soon as I had said that statement, did you want me to tell her to leave? They kind of backed off of it and didn't address it any further. But it was just so this is kind of the mindset you guys all work with, huh? We're just here to make a buck and push money, push sales, whatever, make money. We're not here to actually help anyone. That bothered me a lot. And that same job the company I worked for, they would continuously put me in a different position that made no sense. I was a bud tender for years. And then they put me as a receptionist. And there were other people that I'd worked with that had their licenses to sell both rec and medical. And I had also, for a year plus of experience, have had both of those licensing. And at this place particular, they didn't want to give me my med license. They refused to for a long freaking time. In fact, I never actually received my medical license to sell until the week I had quit. And I had quit for other reasons, but pretty much still the same. It lined up with they don't actually care about helping people, and that was being used a lot, and a lot of other things that were not correct. Like my tips were not being divvied correctly. I was not being paid my tips for quite a bit too. It's just until these things change, and until there's no bullying as well, which I experienced a lot at my first job in this industry. When I keep saying like my first, or I keep trying to go back and forth, it's just really I'm trying to refrain from using names, even though they don't deserve me to protect their names or whatever. I feel like I just want to go about this a different way. I've talked about a lot of this stuff before, and it's just, this is for myself. This isn't for anyone else. I mean, besides anyone that can gain anything from learning from experiences and stuff that I share, but this is for myself. I'm not doing this to hurt anybody. And I also watched a really important video that stuck with me for a long time, and it was like, your truth is not, I'm so mad at myself that I can't articulate this exactly how I remember it to be, but it was just pretty much along the lines of like, your truth is still your truth, and it doesn't mean that you're, trying to start like a slander campaign. That's what I was trying to think of. So it's not slandering somebody or a smear campaign if you're telling the truth about what you went through because of those people or whatever. And it really deterred me from wanting to be back in the industry until I find a place that is good. I'm really going to stick to what I've been doing, and I really enjoy the connections that I have within the community. I will say, though, again, I appreciate all the experience and the knowledge that I gained from working in the industry and working around at these different places, but you kind of just got to feel around and see what works best for you. Don't settle for don't settle for less, and just don't settle for anything that you think is going to be a certain way until you know and go through it for certain. Like, there are other places out there, and for a bit I was so discouraged at the first job I had that I thought I was never going to work in the industry again, and that's not true. So you just have to have faith in yourself and stay true to yourself, and that's really all that I kind of wanted to share with you guys, is that, like, it's not this big dream that it's all made up to be. There are a lot of negative things that come within the industry, and there's a lot of negative people associated within the industry, but there is a lot of good too. And the more that we try to work together and bring in more good people, that it could outweigh the bad, and it could potentially change the entire system around, which is sometimes corrupt. I mean, really quickly, I'll touch on something that I just recently learned from the Stoney podcast from, or like the channel that Coral Reefer does. Her and Mio, I apologize if I'm not pronunciating anything correctly. My throat has been really weird today. I keep coughing and just have a lot of phlegm. So my apologies. But they had talked about a dispensary, like, completely breaking regulations, and they were picking up weed scraps from the trash and selling it. I can't even believe that is true, but it is. And that's disgusting. That is completely disgusting. It can make people really sick. So there's stuff like that. Like, we got to really work together to change this as a whole. But that's really what I want to talk about with you guys, and I will update you guys further in the future with some more episodes that I'm really excited to share with you guys. But I've had to take some time for myself, and we all got to do that sometimes. We got to take care of ourselves first, and then we can take care of others. So anyway, happy Friday. I hope everyone has a really good weekend, and stay litty.